My name is Austin Daly, and we're here with a couple missionaries. Tell us about yourself.
I'm Lydia.
I'm Fred, and this is Naomi, and we have two other sons, Noah and Nathaniel, and we are missionaries with Abwe, and we 2 days from now we'll be going back to Togo, West Africa.
When did you first start coming to MAG?
I started coming to MAG when I was actually in junior high. So, and then we started coming as a family.
And I first really came to MAG in 2012. We just finished up an OB fellowship in Tacoma, Washington, and we moved out here for a 3-month time period before we left to go to Togo, West Africa with Samaritan's Purse. And then we returned from the year of, during the year of 2015, and so we spent a year at that time. So I've been coming here for about a little over, maybe a year and a half, and now we've been back for a couple of weeks, and we're going to head back to Togo.
Why are you in the missions field?
I think because there's multiple reasons. I think first is basically just that we really feel like this is what God has called us to. And then second of all is just getting a chance to be in a different culture, to be with different people, and to work with them, enjoy them, to get to know them. And then also it allows my husband and I to be physicians, and I can let him tell you about that. Or tell him you guys why, from his part.
Yeah, I mean, just adding to the first part, I mean, I think Christ's example is one of love, and I think the best way to show it is to go out and help somebody, to provide assistance in time of need. And I think being in the mission fields allows us to be in cultures where there's a great need, especially for medical care. And I think if we can do that successfully, I think then you start to win that audience for God. People start to ask, well, why are you different? What are you doing this? And I think that's the way to change the world. And yeah, medicine is excellent over there. I mean, here as family docs in the States, our practice would be limited because we have so many specialties. But there in West Africa, we are 4 or 5 doctors in a 50-bed hospital that has a service area of about 500,000. So very comparable to Northern Kentucky, where you have 2 major healthcare systems up there, maybe over 1,000 beds, over 1,000 doctors. And we get to work in an area there where we get to really practice full-scope medicine. And I think there's something satisfying about that in terms of being able to deal with babies, kids, adults, OB, and surgery. So,
What is one of the most life-changing experiences?
So for me, it would just be the lady with the thyroid. I don't know if you just want to tell that story or...
yeah, I mean, there are multiple,
Yeah.
but we can tell a story. America is great. America is a land of opportunity, and we are often protected in our environment. We get to, our health care is taken care of for the most part. Yes, there are poor parts of America, but we happen to be in an area where we are doing well and a lot of things are provided. And so a true understanding sometimes of a situation evades us. And in Togo, it's raw. I mean, we have multiple patient stories that still affect us today. And one is a lady who comes in, and her grandma brought her into the hospital, and it was during our first month there. And she wasn't eating, she couldn't eat, she couldn't drink, she had difficulty breathing. And we took a look at her, and what we figured out is she had cancer in her throat. And the cancer went from here and down to the heart. And there's nothing, it was all rotten. The surgeons looked at her and said there's nothing we could do. And also, she was 28 weeks pregnant. And in Togo, for them to seek health care, the Togolese system is based on a couple of things. First of all, you go to a hospital, someone diagnosed you, and then they give you a bill up front. They tell you what medicines to buy, what your cost in the hospital is going to be, and then you have to pay something extra for the doctors and nurses, etc. And a bill like that can be easily 2 years' salary for a Togolese. And in our hospital, we operate different. If someone's really sick, we treat them and ask for payment later. And for this lady, there's not much we could do for her. She was dying, but there's something we could do. For the pregnancy. And so we kept the baby in her as long as we could, and then before she passed away, we did a C-section on her. Took out the baby, and the baby was 28 weeks, probably a little over a kilogram. And when we took her out, the baby was struggling breathing. And in those cases, you have to breathe for the baby. And so we sat there and provided respirations for the baby for over a 3-hour period. And you got to understand, during that 3 hours, patients are coming to the hospital. The work backs up. And at the end of 3 hours, we decided, okay, there's nothing more we can do. We must stop. And we stopped bagging her, and by God's grace, that baby started to breathe. And over the next 3 months, we took care of that child. And after 4 months, the child was discharged from the hospital to grandma. And I had forgotten about her. And then 2 years later, a month before I was ready to leave Togo and come back here, I was hiking in the backwoods and came to a village. And when I got to that village, an older lady kept hounding me. She goes, "Can I take your photo? Can I take your photo?" And I said, okay. And she came, and there was some other people, and I suspect they were her family, and she was holding a 2-year-old girl, or a young girl. And I had no idea who it was, and I also got a photo because I thought it was an interesting encounter. And I bring it back to our house, and I show my wife, and I say, hey, here's a photo. Someone was trying to take pictures of me. And my wife looked at her and said, "That's the grandma with the 2-year-old child." So, I mean, there's countless stories of successes and loss, but it's things like that that just sit you back, and you say, you know what? We're in an environment here where we're participating in showing the love of Christ. And I think it's things like that where you get motivated and you go, it's tough at times, but there's a purpose and a reason we are here.
What are some of your favorite experiences as a missionary?
I think for me, it's just being able to, when you're able to hand a mom who hasn't been able to have a live baby. We had a woman who came in who she'd lost how many previous pregnancies?
3 pregnancies.
3 previous pregnancies, and she was only at about 26, 27 weeks.
Yeah.
And the water had already broke around the baby, and she thought she was going to lose this baby. And at the time, we didn't know, and we prayed with her, and we told her that most likely she would lose this baby as well. But in that situation, we had a chance to be able to, with God's help, step in and try to help the baby as best we could. And in the end, that baby lived, and she was ecstatic. Yeah. She was very happy about it. It made a huge difference for her in her life. So.
What is your favorite phrase in French, and what does it mean?
Favorite phrase is du courage. I don't know if there's a translation here. When somebody goes through a bad situation, or when somebody is struggling, there's really not a phrase, whether it's positive or negative. You either say sorry or I'll pray for you. And either sorry or I'll pray for you can be positive or negative or a bit weak at the situation. But du courage is, the idea is, good strength, like give you strength, give you courage to succeed. And I think it's a beautiful phrase that can be used any times during struggle, during successes, is just to encourage you to keep going. So,
What do you think is the most important part of being a missionary?
these are tough questions. You know, I think if we break it down and just think of what do you need to succeed, you need flexibility. You need a anchor somewhere in Christ, in family, because going to the mission field, it's really different, and there's two extremes. When we're in the mission field, we get a salary, grace of our supporters, our financial supporters, and church supporters. And in the mission field, we are rich, we are white, and we have money, and we hold status. And when we come here to the States, we are nothing. We have a little bit of salary, but it does not compare to the American society. And to go from one extreme to the next and go back and forth at times can be encouraging, but also discouraging. And it doesn't also only relate with salary. If you look at our medical facilities that we work at, there's a great difference between what exists in the field and then what you have here in the States. And I think trying to be able to work in that environment, to accept the two extremes, and to be able to accept it and say this is what it means to be a missionary. I mean, you have to have a motivation, and I believe the motivation has to be Christ. And then secondary there has to be a flexibility to take the extreme changes. We are most comfortable, I think, as humans working in a constant environment. The routine of a hospital here, or the routine of a village life, or a life here in Madison, for example, and change that up with, you know, we've been doing this since January 2013, and the other day we were thinking, you know, we have moved. So 13, we're what, 7 years now? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 years, and we've probably moved 6 times, 7 times, and big moves. We've gone to the West Coast, to the East Coast. We've gone from the East Coast to Switzerland, Switzerland to Togo, Togo back to here, to France, and now we're going back to Togo. These aren't just 5-minute moves. These are day-and-a-half moves. And so I said just the flexibility and the comfort to go from one extreme to the next and to accept what it is.
Why should people give to missions?
It's a good question. I mean, the question to me I would also is how do you change the world? And I think there is only one answer, and I true believer that Christ's example of love and humility will change the world. This world, what we live in, is something that we have created. Our struggles, our defeats, our areas of poverty, they are choices that we as humans have made. And I think missionaries are a great example, an opportunity. They go to another culture and they show love and compassion in areas of need. And it's just not Africa. You have missionaries here in the States. You have missionaries in Canada. You have missionaries in Europe. You have missionaries in Asia. And I think in every area where missionaries go out and reach, they're trying to focus on a need, an area of need. And often that need can be one of poverty. It could be financial poverty. It could be spiritual poverty. It could be medical poverty. Whatever it is, there's a great need there. And I think missionaries are a great way for an atheist, the idea is to bring humanity back into the humans. For us as Christians, it is to win that audience for God, to ask people, how can we make this difference? What is different? And I think to give to missionaries is to encourage that process of influencing the world, to show people that are in need that there are people out there that love them. There is an example out there. I think, and also in giving, we must not just give freely, we must also ask the questions. I think it's very important as those that give shouldn't just, oh, you're a missionary, here's $100. Oh, you're a missionary, what do you do? What is the goal? What is the objective? What are the challenges? Because I think that is very important. We have money is limited resource, and we should use it wisely.
And I think also not only just giving money, but also giving of time and prayer, because I know for us being out there, having somebody just send us a short email saying, how are you doing? Having somebody just send us a short email saying, hey, we're praying for you, makes a huge, huge difference, because you can feel very alone out there. So,
At what age did God call you to be a missionary?
You're a tough. Yeah, maybe I can sit with Geraldo. It'll be easier.
I think for me, I felt like that from a very young age. My parents were missionaries in the Philippines, and I think I always kind of felt called to go back and do what they had done. So, and then it just kind of developed as I got older, and developed more so when I was in the university. But
yeah, mine's a little bit different. My parents are Swiss, and by default we are Catholic, and I think I didn't have a call when I was younger, and you kind of wander away from Christ. And when I was older, the questions came up of, where do I see the greatest benefits? What is logical to me? And I've always been drawn towards Christianity. In 2008 or 9, somewhere in there, I made the decision to follow Christ again. And as I was going through medical school, I became aware of the great need in overseas hospitals and missions. And when I met my wife, I think there was a confirmation to go overseas and to spend some time and assist people.